Good morning, my name is Brandon Sneed. Today we're going to be working with workforce education and talking about welding helmet safety. Today we're going to go into more details about how to inspect your welding helmet. You can refer to your Hobart Welding Pocket Reference Guide. It goes into great detail of how to inspect your welding hood. You can also find different places to reference to, like OSHA's website or your Career Connections book on the welding and cutting dialogue. Visually inspecting the welding shield is a great deal. It brings good safety. You have to protect yourself from the UV lights, and also it protects yourself from any debris that could come off welding or chipping processes while doing the welding. First thing you want to do is start with the lens and start with the face of your welding hood. I like to take a nice soft brush and remove any of the loose dust and dirt that I can first before getting into cleaning with any type of solution. The main thing we want to do before we start using these solutions is make sure there's no power to our automatic welding hood. If you're using an automatic welding hood, you need to first take out the inside part, which in this Viking style hood is very simple. You pull these two tabs in together, remove the center part, and now you have your lens out. You can easily access the batteries by the top area here. Taking them out is very important. That way if we get any moisture to there, it doesn't affect our lens afterwards. So I like to take my center part out first. We want to start by taking out the inner lens, which snaps right out of the inside. And we can see that it's already very dirty. This hood was used yesterday, already been cleaned, was properly stored and cleaned and put up before we were done. So it's already accumulated some dust on the inside and the outside of our lens. This part of the lens is what protects you from the light and the UV. It turns the colors. And then we have the shielding lens here that's just to protect our inside part, which is the most expensive piece of our welding hood, from any type of damage. So I first like to take it out, and I just use a nice Windex spray. You can use vinegar solutions, or you can just use a cleaning towelette or a dry rag. So I like to spray just a little bit of Windex on my damp rag first, removing any of those particles and dust from there, so we can get a nice inspection when we get started. Removing all the dust and stuff is very important. And after we get all the dust removed, we now can start looking for defects. First spot we want to look for defects is in the lens itself, because that's where it's protecting us from the lighting. So we want to look for any obvious signs of cracks or damages, any pitting or scratching that could occur if we don't have our proper cover on. We look in there to make sure everything's working. We can check and make sure that it comes on just by facing it by the light after putting our batteries back in. After examining the lens, it's very important to start with your outer lens as well. It's protecting any type of debris from hitting you in the face and coming through your glass lens that's on the inside. Same process with it. We can take this, take our towel, our towelette, or our cleaning solution, simply wipe it off there. These can be easily removed as well, just by popping them out of the inner part. This model here pulls right out of there, so it makes it nice and easy. It does have a rubber gasket around the outside, so another spot we want to check on our welding hood is the rubber gasket. Make sure it's soft and pliable. Make sure there's no obvious signs of any cracks or tears in it. Another step we can go into with the lens itself on the outer part is you can take it right now and look into the light with it. You should not be able to see any light reflecting towards the inside. So as you can see clearly through the lens, but looking around all the cracks and corners, we don't want to let any light filter through here, because if there's light coming around the gasket, then our inner part of our lens will not be protected from the light as well. That will give you gaps where the light can come in and possibly burn your face. So after cleaning all this, we can simply assemble it back together, snapping our end parts in, and it's back assembled. One of the more simpler hoods, real nice detail that they put into it. Makes it real easy to change your inner and outer lens out, take it apart to clean it, and take it apart to inspect it. Next thing we want to check is our headgear. The headgear should properly seat onto your head, depending on your head style. This model here has 4 different adjustments. You can adjust the front of the headband, height that it sits off your head, the in and out, and the tightness here. When checking your headgear, you want to make sure that the ratchet works properly, it holds in place, and that it'll free up nice and smoothly. We don't want any type of debris inside here that could jeopardize the way it works. You can take this, simply wipe it off with a dry towel, and make sure there's no heavy dust or dirt inside there as well. If you are equipped with the sweatband in there, you need to check it just the same as you would with your welding hood inspection. Go through and make sure there's no sharp objects, any grinding slag or welding slag that could build up on here. Make sure it's nice and pliable, because that's going to be resting on your head or on your head cover, so that gives you more protection, nice soft feel when you're using it. Also try to check the housing of your welding hood. Make sure that there's no cracks, obvious damage in it. It should be nice and flexible. This hood here, it's got a long life to it. It is pretty flexible. There's no obvious signs, cracks, damages, anything. We also check the inside, make sure there's no cracks or damages in it. And then after I check for any damages, I like to once again hold it up to the light to make sure that no light is filtered around here. Because after we flexed it, we put it under some pressure, and that's what happens when we use it out in the field welding. We got to get our heads in tight spots, or we're moving around back and forth, and we don't want any type of movement to give us any obvious signs of damage around here. So hold it back up to the light, give it a nice look through around your face, and make sure that there's no light filtering in. Another thing we want to talk about is your hood storage. Make sure you store it in a proper manner. If you do have an off switch, then simply turn it to off. This model here goes off after it's not been used for a while. So we don't want to store it where it gets a ton of light going to it. But then again, it's kind of bad for hoods if they're in the dark all the time. If you don't use your welding hood often, you should take it out, let it be exposed to some sunlight or some bright lights inside a shop, and make sure that it kicks itself on. If it has a solar charging strip inside there, it needs to have access to light every once in a while, or it'll just stay black, and you'll have the chance of ruining your hood. So I like to store mine in a dry bag, put it inside the nice soft cloth bag that came with the Viking hood. You don't have to store it in the bag itself. You can store it inside a cabinet, but make sure wherever you're storing it at is a clean, dry place, and make sure that it's stable. We don't want the hood to be smashed. If you keep it in a stored area that's smashed all the time, then it's going to stay in that position after you get done. So you wind up having a hood that's been bent and defective. Store it in a nice, suitable area. Like I said, flat, prevents it from getting hit with anything. We don't want to store materials on top that are too close. You take careful consideration sensitive areas like the front of it. Make sure that if anything gets pushed into that area, dropped in that area, that you won't be exposing the lens to any damage while it's in storage. The worst thing would be is to get your hood out of storage, be expecting to wear it, and then notice that you've cracked the lens from improper storage. Although the cleaning and inspection is pretty basic, it's very important that we do a very thorough job with it. This is protecting our face from any type of those harmful UV lights, any rays or radiation, and then any flying debris that could come from welding processes. After you're done doing your full inspection, then you can reinsert your batteries if you haven't. Make sure that it kicks back on. Let it dry. If you think you may have used too much solution on it, let your hood thoroughly dry before using it. Any type of moisture in there could cause any damage. The moisture to the electrical parts could cause damage as well. So make sure it's thoroughly dry before you're using it. At the end of this, we should be able to discuss a few questions, understand the difference between the various styles of welding hoods, different shade fixes. We can refer back to our Hobart reference guide. You can look at table E with filter lens selection, shielded metal, gas shielded arc, tungsten. They have different criteria for different lens shades. So if you're using automatic, it's very easy to select it, but if you're using the standard single shaded hood, then you may have to go to a darker lens within the hood. We should also be able to describe the safety hazards associated with the electricity, the gases, and the tools that we're using in correlation to our welding hood. Also, our conditions that we're working in and our unsafe behaviors. Sometimes we get into unsafe behaviors where we skip our welding hood inspection, go straight into work, and that can cause severe burns. So we want to make sure we're going over the situations that could be unsafe with the work processes. Also, we need to be able to identify the protective gear, know which parts of your head gear should be components and where to select and move and have a proper fit. And you should be able to complete an exam with 100% passing accuracy. Once again, my name is Brandon Sneed, and thank you for watching Welding Hood Safety.